Welcome to Classroom 5.0, the podcast where we explore the future of work, learning, and leadership. I'm your host, Marianne Power, clinical psychologist, speaker, and consultant on meaningful work-life design and neurodiversity. Here's a question for you. Did you know that over 53% of professionals in fields like tech identify as neurodivergent? We've all heard about the challenges, but what about the untold stories of success? In NeuroPEAK, Season 5 of the podcast, we're flipping the script. I'm sitting down with visionary leaders to reveal the strategies and strengths that power peak performance in neurodivergent professionals. If you're ready to discover how our community thrives beyond a diagnosis, you're in the right place. Let's dive on in to today's episode. Hello, Jenny and Jill. This feels so special. And listeners, you're going to have to just catch up with me because you'll find out why in just a second. But thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast for Classroom 5.0. We've been riffing on when to make this conversation happen, and you've had so much going on, both of you, Jill, you in particular, in the last few months. So to be here with you both right now, it feels, I'm absolutely honoured and privileged. So thank you for joining me. How are you both?
Good.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Good. I love that. To catch you up, listeners, Jenny and Jill, the potential project, we're going to hear about that in a sec. But I met Jenny just this year, actually, at the Thriving Workplace event. And Jill and I collided a couple of years back, actually, in 2022.
Yep.
I think that was the first time we met at the Thriving Workplace event then when we were both speaking. And the only reason I doubt myself, Jill, for context, is because for me, at least, that connection in those couple of days with you were just so natural and easy. I just enjoyed spending time with you, and our conversation shared, but it felt like I'd known you a lifetime.
Like a long time.
A long time. And then to learn that 11 days after that event that you'd suffered such a significant stroke, was just heartbreaking to hear of. And to hear parts of your recovery journey has been an absolute privilege and pleasure. So I'm really thrilled to be inviting you here today to share that with our audience, because I think they're going to learn a lot from you and your insights. So thank you for generously sharing. And you too, Jenny. The friendship between the two of you just has blown my mind. But anyway, I could rave and rant and fan club on both of you for hours. So let's not do that just yet, Maz. I'm going to throw it over to you both. Can you tell us a little bit, first and foremost, the Potential Project?
Well, Potential Project is actually a global organisation. We're a research and leadership development and consultancy firm. And our purpose is to create a more human world of work, which is really interesting in this age of AI. And our next book that's coming out is about how we can make the most of artificial intelligence and yet double down on our ability to create that human model of work. So really interesting, published by Harvard Business Review, coming out soon. But yes, that's what we do here in Australia as well. So Jill and I are both the co-national directors for Potential Project in Australia, and absolutely love the work that we do, supporting leaders and teams to cultivate that both and quality, where we can be both achieving high performance and doing so with care for our people, bringing in that humanity.
And Jenny, you said that so eloquently, and I know you would have seen me throw to you because I know I am not that familiar. No, I am not very good at taking the reins. So it's really good to be together.
Oh, well, always great to be together, and over the years it's been a to and fro between us. So it's just the way. Yeah.
Yeah, that to and fro is just magic between the two of you, I have to say. Having watched you fro together, I want to ask you about that, actually, because you've come together and collided for work and your shared passion of people and bringing that real human element and care, kindness into our workforce. How did you meet? Was it through work, or was there a friendship prior to your work engagement together? Because obviously that's blossomed now, but tell me a little bit about your origin story together.
You can fill out but before thing, and then I can just come in with the highlights.
Sure.
Beautiful.
We actually first met a long time ago, back in, well, before 2000. It was probably about
Right.
98, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We both worked for SOCOG, for the organising committee that put on the Olympic Games in Sydney in 2000. And so we met then. But Jill, you weren't with SOCOG for very long back then, I don't
Definitely.
think.
That's right.
Yeah. Although it felt like you were there for ages. Like, it felt like you were just,
That was because we were good at being. We were awesome at partying.
partying. Yeah, that's right.
And partying.
Yeah, all the people
Yeah.
who were there at SOCOG were great at that. And but then many years went past, and we went off into our different fields of things post games. And then I was, well, a part of our journey was that we both had breast cancer as well. And
Yep.
it was
Mm.
when, after I had gone through my little bit of recovery from breast cancer, and I was considering, what am I, this is going to come out saying, it was going to come out like, oh, what am I doing with my life? I didn't mean it like that. What I meant is I had a moment to stop and think, am I doing something that's making a really positive difference in the world? And in part of doing that reflection, I caught up with a mutual friend of Jill's and mine, and we were chatting, and she was saying, you know what? You really ought to be back in touch with Jill again. And this is several years ago now. And so I did. We caught up for a coffee in North Sydney that time. I remember that, Jill. And there began our...
Remember, I can even remember you walking to the table, and it's like it's changed my life. So it's a moment.
You changed my life. We're mutually changing each other's lives. But yes, we had this beautiful moment. And I remember we had to get going, and our conversation was for ages in the coffee shop in North Sydney. And then we walked out onto the street, and then we sat on sort of like the footpath talking. And I remember a butterfly landed on my finger or my hand, and we just were there talking about this butterfly that just landed there. And then from there on, we started working together, and friendship formed, and so on. Would you want to add in more there, Jill?
I think you've done it pretty well. Thank you very much. I like it.
Maz, was that what you were after?
I'm not sure that I had a set agenda, but you've absolutely delighted me. And I'm so glad I asked. I don't know if you remember at the Thriving event, but I asked you when you were both on stage, what has this experience of a significant life event being the stroke? And for you, Jill, I'm going to invite you to share some of that story in a minute, because it really was significant and nearly took your life. But what has that done to reshape your thinking around love? And I don't know that I got to follow up and circle back on that. The reason that I asked that question was because watching the two of you engage in your friendship, the container that you've created for yourselves to experience personally, but then also to express love, it just was so palpable to me to see it in action. And again, you haven't disappointed in sharing your origin stories. Thank you. So let's like double click on that, because I want to circle back on this question about love and optimism and hope and all the beautiful things that I know you both talk about. But before we go there, just for our listeners in particular, some context. Jill, if you feel comfortable, would you mind taking us back to share what this stroke has done for you in terms of really reshaping your experience of being human, being here?
Well, I sort of the morning that I had the stroke, it started like any other normal day. Like I kind of got up, I had something was like I had a couple of work meetings, and I've had a work sorry, I had a presentation that afternoon, sorry, a bit long, but and so I went over to the hotel where I was presenting at 1:00, and I had a chat with them about a podcast and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And then I was literally about to to go on stage. Like I had my mic on. I like I'm all ready to go, and I suddenly thought, oh, actually, like I'd had a headache during the day, so I'd had some Nurofen, and then I had maybe I need some more, so I had some more, and then I just for some known reason I was like, okay, I've just got to sit down, and so they were all looking at me waiting, and then actually I think I need to lay down. And that was like, whoa, there must be something really wrong here. And I thought, oh well, we'll just I'll get up and we'll go on. But no. So luckily someone dealt with the audience and they got some paramedics to come in, and I asked someone to ring my husband. I can't remember whether they did or not, but and then was by the time we got to the hospital, I was just about to pass out, and then I basically remember until 3.5 weeks after that I woke back up. So the the whole experience for a long time, it was even another 2 months, or maybe 1.5, that I couldn't speak.
Wow.
So having Jenny as a part of that story is really an enormous blessing to me.
What's it meant to have her by your side?
I don't know whether you've ever had a moment where you know that nothing is ever going to be the same. Like it's just that moment when you think, and you might say that you'd say that when you're in love or, something, but this was like, I might not ever having, I never might do anything. I mean, I might not do anything at anybody. Sorry, I'll start again. I might not do anything productive again. Like that's entirely possible. And there were times when I was thinking that, and Jenny, like even when I was sort of, couldn't speak, but I had eyes.
Yeah.
And we talked about, we talked about, but we didn't talk about. She did all the talking. That it's okay. It's going to be okay. Just keep breathing. We can smile at each other, and we're eventually gonna get there. So I don't know, Jenny, can you want to just help me out?
Yeah, what was it like for you, Jenny? Gosh, thank you, Jill. I took away from that it's funny because you talk about hope, and we're talking an active hope. And for me, it sounds like Jenny in that moment was that sort of that external source of hope for you, and somebody that you knew that you could be safe with and be held with. Jenny, tell me what it was like for you to watch your friend Jill to be suffering in that moment.
Extraordinarily hard. And I also don't want to give the impression that I was the only person there supporting Jill. Jill has a billion gazillion friends. Though I know Steve, your husband, was very, is careful the right word about who could come and see you in those early days as well, in those very early days when you were in intensive care and then in hospital after that. But like I remember the first time I saw Jill in intensive care, if I hadn't have been told that was Jill in the bed, if I had to just like walk around and find which patient in the bed was her, I probably would have just walked straight past because she just looked so different. And I was so like shocked in a way. There were tubes everywhere, tubes out of your skull. and your nose and your throat, your mouth, tubes everywhere, people everywhere, light everywhere, just so much that was going on as well. And and then I remember there was one time in intensive care where your eyes could make contact with me. And there was that moment of hope in a way that, is there a connection there? Is this the start of there going to be a bit of a connection?
Yeah.
Did that eye contact mean that you were actually looking at me, seeing me, and that you could see that I was looking at you and seeing you, etc.?
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Man, the image that came to my mind just now was the butterfly on the hand moment. Yeah. Yeah, wow.
Like, yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
is there a starting again? Is there tell me, how has it shifted your mindset, Jill, in terms of how you see the world, how you see relationships, how you see everything?
So having had cancer before, so for 12 years before I had cancer, well, the stroke, I had cancer. So that was like I got my eating right, and I got my exercise right, and I changed jobs, and I started doing the potential project, and all of these things happened. So when I had a stroke, I was kind of like almost the first thing I was thinking as I woke up was, bloody hell, like,
You've done the work.
haven't I already done all of this? This is like, I can't go back here again. But actually, there's so much, like, I'm kind of embarrassed in a way, because there's been so much to learn that I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't get it quite right the first time. But the I think the world now has more curiosity. So and of course, we always talked about curiosity in all our things that we talk about, and you can feel it, that people have they're curious, but like, for example, I got to know my husband again. Like, I mean, I did know him, but it was the thing that was different was, he suddenly had to step up and be the breadwinner. He had to be the carer. He had to be the um, the person who looked after our son. Like, he suddenly had to become all these things. And I think if I had been in the place that he was in, and I said, if my husband had a stroke, I'm not sure that I would actually have made it through. That I would have been like, I've so long, because I was going okay with work, and I did things, I would say, well, that I just had this head that said, I've got this. Like, I've got this. Everything, I've got this. I mean, it doesn't matter how you feel inside; it's what you say on the outside. And suddenly, I had nothing. And so it's been really, really interesting to see my husband absolutely thrive. I mean, he would say and shit and all this stuff, but what he'd really say is, I think I have to step back, and he has stepped forward and flown. So he really, yeah, that's, yeah, that's, I would say, enough.
And for you, that vulnerability, it sounds to me like it was a new experience or a different level of vulnerability that it sounds like felt fresh and odd and curious within itself.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can ask you both, and maybe Jill, starting with you. When we first met, you were speaking a lot to the idea of wise optimism and, you know, the transcendent emotions that we speak to, particularly in positive psychology, you know, or chasing. We connected a lot on those concepts. Where do you stand now? Maybe from a philosophical perspective, and also what would you like to share with other people in terms of, I heard you say before, I thought I'd learned and now I've learned more. And Jenny, I saw you shake your head. And I imagine that there's that, you know, there's a part that's like, but you already knew so much that we all want to scream. But Jill, I also want to acknowledge that depth of discovery that I think maybe is creeping up there. What would you share about those big emotions that you've learned or experiences?
Yeah. I think that in wise optimism, we talk about the realization of the reality that and you have to accept it. Like there's some things that you haven't, like, for example, I have to, I have to accept that the chances are I won't, be able to work what I have, like I have in the past. In some way it's going to change. And I accept that, or at least I try to accept that. But if you can be really defeatist about that, and if you and sometimes that would be, I think that's okay, like that's completely okay. But there's another piece of it that that really hooks on to the hope of something different. And so it's realizing that those two emotions or like, yeah, I'll call them emotions, that are what that's got to be happening all the time,
Side by side. Yeah. And Jenny, how about for you?
Yeah, I'd agree with what you're saying there, Jill. And I've seen it in the way that you've been since you had your stroke as well. There's been that seeing the reality clearly as it is, and I know that's almost like a constant having to re-look at today's reality, and then the next day comes along, and then that today's reality, even the reality changes. And yet I've also seen you take steps towards what you hope to be a better future as well. So there's that combination really of seeing things clearly, that acceptance of the way that things are right now, and yet being prepared to take some steps, like not being passive or giving up or giving in or anything like that. There's steps towards something being different in the future to the way that it is right now. And I guess I say all of this right now because I know, Jill, that you've gone through a lot, and right now you're experiencing a feeling of like, okay, is this the way that it's going to be? So we're in a new stage of acceptance of reality right now, not actually knowing what it's going to look like in the future, and we'll never know. But this is where we're at right now. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And what I learned from you both as you share, and particularly in hearing your story, Jill, is the maturity. It reminds me of the agility quotient. So we talk about emotional intelligence, we talk about normal intelligence, and then that ability to be agile, to recognize that nothing that we have in our present moment experience is guaranteed, can be predicted. That's something that we all live with, being human anyway. And
and the depth of appreciation of that reality is something I really am taking away from what you're sharing. How is that translating then back into the work that you're both doing with leaders? What are you noticing as the responses as they lean in and they listen, they get curious? What are some of the reflections that are coming back?
Jenny, I think you're well placed to that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's such a spectrum, a range of people's responses to things like this. Because yes, that is part of what we do. We go into companies, we talk about awareness, and we talk about wisdom, and we talk about compassion, and we talk about acceptance, we talk about courage and integrity and beginner's mind, and all sorts of things. And there are some people who are leaning in, yes, I need to hear this. I want to hear this. It makes so much sense. And I was running a program on Monday this week where that was everyone in the room. They were so like, yeah, we need this kind of thing right at the moment. And then there will always be those people who are like, no, I'm not ready to hear this yet. Or they're not even ready to say the bit that they're not ready to hear it yet. Like, it's like, no, not for me type thing. But I think in this age of AI as well, it's actually more important now than ever before for us to, well, yes, make the most of everything that artificial intelligence has got to offer us, but more important now than ever before for us to double down on our human qualities. And that's also part of, I guess, the message of what you've gone through, Jill, is that and if I answer this from the perspective of watching, it's the connections and the friendships that you've got all around you, that love, that care from a million, billion, gazillion people. And that's one of the things that I learned about Jill post-stroke, was that there are actually so many people who love and adore her. So it just goes to show that when we are in times of deep challenge and crisis, that it is that humanity that makes the big difference. That is everything. That care and that compassion and that support, that action. Like, that's what compassion is. It's action to alleviate other people's suffering or our own. And yeah, we saw that very much with everything that you've gone through, Jill. And it's good to see that also being discussed within corporate world as well. The need for those qualities. Yeah.
Glad you brought AI to that conversation, because it does feel like we're at a precipice at the moment, a tipping point, a choice point. Do we try and keep up with the advancements in faster, which we've really bred a hustle culture that is seeing its worth and its value in the more mindset. And the choice point is to sit and to reflect on, well, what is it that we as humans are actually bringing to the table as the competitive advantage, if you like? What can we contribute back to be this and with AI? So I love the work that you're doing in that space and helping people to come back to connection, to come back to curiosity, and to come back to love. It's so important and big. It seems almost absurd that it should be, but it is. It's where we are right now. So thank you for sharing all of that. Yeah.
Well, even just what you said then, there are a few things in what you were saying that just really rings true. That you've used the word choice a couple of times, and that is really, really important, because
the autonomy.
We talk about self-awareness and awareness of others as well, because with this awareness, we can then come face to face with the choices that we're making. And as you said, Mass, it's really important that we are at a choice point. And you also talked about the hustle and the busy. So, in fact, things are going to come at us even faster. But that calls upon us to be intentional about the moments when we actually need to slow down, where we need to slow down and we need to have that wise discernment about all of this data that's coming our way. And how can we therefore use that for the purposes of care and compassion? So, yeah,
Yeah,
what you've said is
100%.
really right true, but what we're seeing.
Yeah, thank you for expanding on. It makes me think about the conversation around inclusive impact and how leaders can be inclusive. And what have you learned in terms of your journey together around creating an inclusive workplace for yourselves as a partnership as that's evolving? Because I appreciate it's not static. It's going to need to move and evolve and be agile in itself. And then what are you sharing with other leaders who are wanting to lean into how they can be both rather than it being this? Maybe it has to be a choice. Maybe you can't be inclusive and be financially profitable. I would argue that that's probably not the case, but I'm really curious to hear what's your experience there.
Mm.
Do you want to answer, Jill, where you're at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. For example, watching Jenny do everything at the moment, and I think it's like really interesting that what choices does she make? And for me, I'm going through a similar process. Like, what choice am I going to make? What needs to be happen today? And for me, for example, just like I've been going at quite a pace over the last couple of weeks, and then like basically my body's saying you can't do this, you cannot, and so all of a sudden I know I'm being able to told I have to slow down, like my body's telling me that I have to slow down, but actually that doesn't mean that I can't in 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 still include some different ideas, but they're in a different way or a different time. But Jen, I've been really interested in what you've been doing.
Really? I'm wondering what that might be specifically. So, so, well, Maz, which bit of that would you want me to start on first? Like the us.
Yeah, what I'm hearing, what I'm imagining Jill might be speaking to, and maybe I'm just picking up on something earlier in the conversation around the vulnerability that comes from an identity that was, from my impression of you and from what I've heard you share, highly high achiever, highly productive, being the one who would almost lead the project and push the project and be the idea generator, but then be the executor as well. And I'm imagining in the same way that there's a vulnerability in a romantic relationship and a marriage to take a step back and go, wow, somebody else is stepping into the role that I assumed I had to do. And that if I didn't do it, this whole thing was going to fall apart. I'm imagining that maybe there's similar problems going on in terms of what it might be like to reassess and reevaluate what is my role in this business moving forward. And here's this business partner that we had a different dynamic with prior to a stroke. And now I'm watching Jenny do all of these things and I'm curious about that. And I'm seeing a new version of her. That's where I went to in my head. I don't know if any of that is ringing true. And if so, I guess, Jenny, my question to you would be, what is it like to reevaluate your role? And what's it like to have someone that you work with professionally so closely who's not opting out? Because that could be an option. You know, a lot of organizations, a lot of employees, a lot of business partners would go, okay, well, things have changed, so I'm out. You know, good luck, on you go. Whereas there's something that's happening with your dynamic, whether it be intentional, conscious, or whether it's evolving, that you're opting in and you're leaning in and going, well, let's redesign this. So I guess I'm curious about that.
And let me tell you, it's all Jenny. It's all Jenny.
Driving it.
Amazing.
In what way?
Oh, did
Well,
you? In what way would you say, Jill? Like, I'll let you finish that bit, and then
because obviously from the day of my stroke, you have been unbelievable, like unbelievable. And in that moment, Jenny was actually given the role of the potential project director and has gone ahead with the just absolutely the greatest intention and the greatest outcome. But now we were talking about how does this become? Does this continue? And what is Jill's job? And but yeah, it's been, and it is a live question.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of describing it. A live question. It's unfolding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Well, gosh, there's so much that I could say about all of that. I think that it's been hard to see what Jill has had to face, what you've gone through, Jill, and continues to go through as well. So I feel like my meditation practice actually is so supportive through all of this, because this is just about helping us to be with what is. And meditation and all of the framework around it, which is all of the learnings and the teachings that come from millennia, actually has really helped me to just be able to be with what is at the moment and ongoing, and letting go of the expectations of what things might be like in the future, knowing that there's desires for the way that things might be in the future, and there might be not wanting things to be a certain way, whatever. But all of this is about helping me, helping us perhaps, but certainly helping me just to be with things the way that they are.
Yeah.
And there's also just a letting go of ego. Like, I think from both of our perspectives, there's been the need just to stay humble through all of this. Just stay humble, just to stay curious, just to have care and compassion as the number one thing. And yet I never have let potential project go through all of this. Like, my commitment to potential project has been really huge. So even though, and especially for that first year, like, I'd go and visit you every week in hospital, Jill, or, through, or maybe it wasn't quite a whole year. So you were in hospital for how long was it? 9 months? 10? 8?
About
10,
long
10
time.
months. That's right. So I'd go visit Jill in hospital every week. And because I live in the Blue Mountains, that's like a half day out of my day, half a day each week. And that was critically important to do that. And I could still do potential project at the same time. There was a myriad of other stuff going on in my life as well. I think what I'm trying to say is that it's just a being with what is, but being driven by the North Star of care and compassion has been really important. And knowing that that doesn't mean that I have to let other things go in order to bring in that care and compassion. It's possible to do both. I don't know if I answered your question, actually. Now I'm trying to remember what the question was. But
you took us on a beautiful journey. For me, the main message and the takeaway that I'm sitting with is to sit with what is. And I think that is just such a brilliant message and so timely within itself for me personally, but I think for a lot of our listeners, especially as there's a lot of change happening right now. And there's always been change. It's just that right now it feels like there's exponential change happening for a lot of people, whether it be personally in their lives for health reasons, work reasons, but, globally as well. And so that what you've gifted me, at least, and hopefully our listeners as well, is a sense of modeling that with change comes that uncertainty. And a lot of that uncertainty invites us to let go of prior expectations and to redesign how we want to define ourselves moving forward. and the business has a place in that definition process. I love the fluidity that you're putting on the table, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think that the change, if we can let go of our expectations, we can also then reduce suffering around potential change. It just allows
Absolutely.
to sort of be with things the way they are without amping up the suffering by thinking that it should be different. And I think I mentioned that it's been hard because I still, like, there are so many videos I've got of Jill pre-stroke talking and delivering programs and and listening on podcasts. And every time I come across one of those, there is that little arrow in my heart. And I can't even imagine what it would be like in your heart, Jill, which is just coming face to face again with those realities about impermanence and about suffering. Yeah. And how who we think we are is in fact not us, like this not self concept of we think we're a certain way and then just life comes along and says, no, you're not. And and I guess each time I see those videos, I get that pain in my heart. And then, like I say, I can't even imagine what the pain would be like for you, Jill. And then I just have that reminder again. I've just got to be with things the way they are. This is just the way that it is. It's not personal to you really, and it's, we all face it.
But there's a loss. There's a grief and a loss for what was, and then sitting with that and sitting it side by side with what is as well. I mean, you're just still that bright shining light. I hope that's a good piece of information and news and reflection for you. But I mean, gosh, but it's tough, isn't it?
I used to be in a band.
I didn't know that.
I used to not. I mean, it was in my 40s for about 10 years, so it's not that great. But what was really interesting is I used to say, "Oh, I'm hopeless. Like I'm hopeless." And now I look at back those videos, and I realize that, and I go, "Wow, I was actually really good." Like it's not that I was really, really good, as in the voice or something like that we see on television, but actually I was really good. And I think now I should have celebrated that. And I bet everyone on the podcast listening now would they have things they say, I wish I was better at that. And my voice to those people is just give yourself space and the cues of showing up. Like it's just so amazing how that what you can put into something that you never recognize that it is a real achievement.
That is such a nice segue because I wanted to ask you about achievement still. Last time I heard you speak, there were moments like finding grip in one hand that you didn't know if you'd get back again, kicking down a lane of a pool. Would you feel comfortable sharing some of the achievements that you're noting?
Can you just give me a see of where you're going with this direct question?
Sure. I don't necessarily have a set expectation of your answer, but I'm curious about your recovery and how you're feeling in terms of those mini achievements that others might be surprised by.
Yeah.
I think so many people take, for example, it's for granted that you could grip a hand, but when you lose your ability for a hand grip, that's a big moment. Taking a step's a big moment, finding a word.
Yeah.
What are you celebrating at the moment?
Thank you. Well, at the moment, the things I'm working on are my knee and making it go up a step without it being it before. It is like it just needs to be stronger, and in the reality is it probably won't be strong enough to actually walk with it, but I want to get it as strong as it can be. So I'm celebrating when I make tiny, like just like I yesterday I had like 8 um going up and down the stairs, and tomorrow I would want to try and do 9.
I love
So
that.
it is that basic like,
It's well
yeah.
said.
But
Yeah.
but the same thing was like one of the things is I can't I'm right-handed, and now my right hand's busted, so my left can get I want to be able to write my diary with my left hand, and so I've I've been doing like I started with the my the green no the brown what do you remember this word, the brown a fast dog, like, no, anyway,
The
it was
quick brown fox jumped
yeah,
over that one.
that's it
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. I had to think because when it comes to those types of little, I also get stuck on my mind. But great,
So I was doing that, and I was writing it 12 times, and then I got to like
amazing.
2 months, the end of 2 months, and I thought, "Far out, I'm bored of this." Um,
Yes.
so I went and got some Brené Brown,
Wow.
and I just I said, "Okay, I'm going to write out a page of her every day," and
Mm.
that was good. So like just being able to write so that people actually can read it. So now my family can read it. They can read
Mm.
that I've written. So it's like just um each day the the tiniest um um thing that you can do that she sees that you're actually making progress,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and be grateful for those things and give up all of the bashing around things you can't do, because you know it always will be.
And that's for all of us. That perseverance and that grit and that willingness to step into something that's hard without necessarily knowing the outcome, then
Mm.
measuring and celebrating that success. Thank you. That's very inspiring. You've been so generous with your time, and I'm conscious of energy levels. I would normally have all of these additional quick fire round questions that I'm not going to put you through, but I do have 2 if you feel like you've got the energy left for both. The first one is, what comes to mind when you think of the word or the words of having an impact mindset?
Go it, Jen. I can see. God.
Well, I know I've been saying this probably a couple of times during it today, but I think an impact mindset has to start with self-awareness. And
Mm.
from self-awareness, it's then having that capacity to discern the wisdom of what to do with that
Mm.
awareness. And that can only be supported by doing so with care and compassion. So they're the 3 things that I've mentioned before, but I think are relevant to this answer as well. Yeah, an impact mindset has to include awareness, wisdom, and compassion.
Mm.
Mm. I like that. That's given me some food for thought. Thanks, Jenny. How about you, Jill? Anything come to mind when you think of those words, impact mindset?
I think for me, I definitely can concur with Jenny. I think that is really very wise. And the day by day thing of it is just do the best you can. And sometimes even the best you can is just actually doing not very much.
Showing up.
Just just keep going and keep going and keep going. And also rest.
Yes. Yes to rest. We could all do with a bit more of that. Thank you. This one's a big one. See how you feel. What does it mean to live a meaningful life?
Is that the question?
Yeah. Where do you start?
That's a very interesting question because it's a question that I'm asking myself literally day by day, and actually more than once a day. I think that it's always got to be, for me, compassion for self and compassion for others. That if you take from that and see from that place everything, even the smallest, like if I go downstairs and one of the people who works in the building is like just like smiling at him, and just see that sometimes it actually makes a bit of a difference to his day. I'm told. It's okay. It's like whatever it is that can be of worth, that's really, to me, and for certainly for family as well, that would be a good enough for me today.
Thank you. Jenny, throw to you.
Yeah, a very similar answer. I've been reflecting on that quite a lot. And what does it mean to lead a meaningful life? So for me, it is about the care for people, the humanity that is possible to do in any setting. And doesn't mean that we can't do hard things or that we can't have hard conversations. But what I'm talking about is just a meaningful life is one where we see the humanity in people and we act with care. And that care can be there in all sorts of different settings. It can be there with strangers. It can be there with the people who we've known our entire life. It can be there with anyone in between. And I think that if I was to say the number one thing, my answer today is that. My answer tomorrow might change a little bit, but that's how I feel right now as well. That's how I feel right now.
Love that. Thank you so much. Oh, so much in today's conversation. Before I let you go and say goodbye, is there anything that we've missed? Is there anything that you want our listeners to really take away and to think about? Call to action.
I think mine is just for me. It's funny because I've been thinking about this a lot, and just being witness to the dignity of the human spirit. Like it's just so it's so interesting in my head, but also I love it from my heart. And so the thing that I would hope that I keep doing, it's just bearing witness, and that what can be from there is, and we'll see what we see.
That's delicious. Thank you. Jenny, is there anything that you haven't said that you'd like our listeners to be left with?
Well, I think just coming off the back of what Jill was saying before about pre-stroke, she didn't really appreciate the fact that she was a really great musician and all these other things as well. So I think for people listening, I think that might be that little bit of call to action is, what is it that we've got in our life right now that we have achieved or that we've done or that we've given or that we've, whatever it might be, that because it's a positive thing, we're not seeing it because we're so busy looking at the negative things or the things that we want to be different in some way. So I think that, and thanks, Jill, for pointing that out, that what is it right now that if we looked back on it later, we would think, wow, that was amazing. Why don't we just live that now and be amazed now as we're in the middle of actually experiencing this thing.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. It comes back to that mindful state of being, doesn't it? Where can people find you? Because I know they're going to want to follow up with the potential project, get amongst what's happening.
Thank you. We would love it if people did follow up with the potential project. We've got our next book coming out by Harvard Business Review in March, which is all about how we can...
So exciting.
Yeah, the AI and the human leadership. So we've got a lot to do in that space. So people can learn more about Potential Project at potentialproject.com. Jill and I are both on LinkedIn, and you can find us there. And I've got my Jenny Steadman website. So it's jennysteadman.com.au. And that has a bit of a catch-all of everything that I do around the Potential Project work and then the mindfulness meditation work. And also I do a lot with advocacy for people who've experienced sexual violence. So that's all mentioned there on my website as well. So people can find us through those means.
Everywhere. Amazing. I'll drop links into the show notes too. So if you're listening, there are so many places to stay in touch with these two incredible women. You've both been, this conversation has just expanded my thinking and my heart and my soul and my hope for not only the future, but this very present moment and today in general and everything that is in front of us. So thank you so much for joining us. And to our listeners, thank you again for another episode, being a part of it. Classroom 5.0, your interest in inclusive impact. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Classroom 5.0, our NeuroPEAK series. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to check out the list of resources mentioned. Just hit the link in the show notes below. And hey, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you could share it with a friend, leave a review, and make sure to follow the podcast so that you don't miss what's coming next. We've got a ripper of a lineup. For more on supporting your own neurodiversity journey, you can head on over to mariannepower.com.au. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.